Dad toasted my sister for being the only one who helps, and everyone clapped. So I quietly mentioned I'd been secretly sending her $4.4K a month for her kids' school. Her face went pale, her husband looked like he saw a ghost, and no one spoke again. At dinner, my father raised his glass and said, "Your sister is the only one who actually does something for this family." Everyone applauded. I smiled, even though my pulse was hammering in my ears. Then I said, clear enough for the whole table to hear, "Then I guess she won't need the $4,400 I send every month for her kids' school." The sound of forks clattering on plates was louder than the jazz band playing in the background. My sister froze mid-smile. Her husband's face turned the color of raw chicken. My father blinked like he'd just heard a language he didn't understand. You ever sit at a table surrounded by people who claim to love you, but make you feel invisible anyway? That was me last Saturday night. It was my dad's 60th. He doesn't call it a party. He hates that word. It was a dinner, formal, catered, black dresses and pressed shirts, held at a downtown restaurant with more chandeliers than warmth. Candles everywhere, live jazz, menus printed with our last name like we were some old money dynasty. My mom planned every inch of it like she was hosting a royal banquet. And of course, the guest of honor was my younger sister, the family's favorite, Rachel, the golden child, the perfect mother, the one who could burn the house down and somehow get praised for keeping everyone warm. She showed up with her husband, Brent, and their two kids, both dressed like they were posing for a country club brochure. They made their entrance like they were walking into a camera flash. I heard my cousin whisper, "Rachel always looks so effortless, doesn't she?" Yeah, effortless, because other people make it easy for her. I wasn't supposed to be there. Work keeps me busy, and honestly, family dinners drain me. But skipping Dad's 60th would have been a declaration of war, and I wasn't ready to add that to my list of sins. So I showed up, smiled when expected, answered the usual questions about when I'll settle down, and endured every compliment thrown at Rachel like it was a family tradition. Dinner started. Brent bragged about their mortgage refinance like he invented finance itself. Rachel kept brushing imaginary dust off her dress and laughing too loud. Then my father tapped his spoon against his glass. His smile, the one he always wears before he says something cruel disguised as love, spread across his face. He said he was grateful for his family, his wife, his health. And then he looked at Rachel. He raised his glass. "Your sister's the only one who actually helps this family." Applause. Loud, genuine, unashamed. Even Brent leaned back, smug like the world just handed him a medal. Rachel looked fake surprised, the way people do when they know the spotlight's about to hit them. And I just sat there. I let them finish clapping before I stood, raised my own glass, and said it, calm, steady, with a smile that didn't reach my eyes. "Then she won't need the $4,400 I send every month for her kids' school." The silence that followed was almost holy. My mom's hand froze midair. Rachel blinked like her brain had short-circuited. Brent's jaw twitched. Even the waitstaff stopped moving. I sat back down, sipped my wine, and said quietly, "That's been going on for 2 years now. Tuition, tutoring, even that robotics camp last summer, the one she bragged about online." No one said a word. No one thanked me. No one defended me. So I smiled again, finished my meal, and left before dessert. That night, I lay in bed drafting an email to my accountant. Cancel every payment to Rachel's account. Immediately. I thought that'd be the end of it. But it wasn't. Because 2 weeks later, I found out Rachel hadn't just been taking my money, she'd been using my name. And not just with the school. With someone I never thought she'd drag into this. Someone who shouldn't have even known I existed. If you'd asked anyone in our family who the responsible one was, they'd say Rachel without blinking. The irony still makes me sick. I'm Erin, the oldest. The one who moved out first, paid for college herself, built a life without asking anyone for a dime. Rachel was the opposite, the baby, the charmed one. Everything was handed to her like the universe was on her payroll. But it wasn't always that way. When we were kids growing up in Cincinnati, Rachel was this quiet, nervous little girl who followed me everywhere. She'd copy my clothes, my handwriting, even the way I tied my shoes. I thought it was cute, until Mom started saying things like, "Rachel just wants to be like you, Erin. You're such a good influence." Somewhere along the way, that turned into, "Why can't you be more like Rachel?" When she got married to Brent, our parents practically threw a parade. He was charming in that salesman kind of way, handsome but hollow. I remember watching him talk about his 5-year plan like he was pitching his own life. Rachel ate it up. They had their first kid a year later, then another one 2 years after that. That's when the calls started. Aaron, we're short on rent this month. Aaron, the car needs new tires. Aaron, the daycare costs went up. And I helped, every time. Because that's what family does, right? At least that's what I told myself. It wasn't one big ask. It was death by 1,000 Venmos, little transfers here and there. Until one day it wasn't just helping. It was full-blown financial CPR. Rachel called me sobbing one night because the private school the kids went to, Arbor Heights Academy, was threatening to expel them for unpaid tuition. She said Brent's hours got cut, the mortgage was eating them alive, and she didn't want her kids to lose stability. I hesitated. Not because I didn't care, but because I knew what it meant. Once I stepped in, there'd be no stepping out. But then she said something that hit me right in the guilt. You don't understand, Aaron. You don't have kids. So I did it. I emailed the school directly. Paid the invoice in full, $4,400 a month. I told them to keep my name off any receipts, to credit it under private sponsorship. That was 2 years ago. Every month, like clockwork, I sent the payment. No recognition, no thank you. Rachel and Brent posted pictures of the kids' achievements like they'd done it all themselves. Robotics camp, piano lessons, awards ceremonies, all funded by me. I'd tell myself it didn't matter, that I was helping the kids, not her. But every time she called me lucky for being single, every time my parents said I didn't understand real responsibility, it chipped away at something inside me. When Dad gave that toast, it wasn't just about money. It was about every time I'd been erased, every time Rachel got praised for things I'd paid for. And that night, after the dinner, when I stopped the payments, I thought maybe she'd finally be forced to face reality. But Rachel's version of reality is built on denial. She didn't just depend on me, she built her entire image on the lie that she didn't need me. And when that lie started to crack, she did what she always does. She tried to control the damage. By any means necessary, I expected a fight. Maybe a text from Rachel, a guilt trip from Mom, something. But after that dinner, nothing happened. Not a single message. The silence was almost insulting. By Monday, I'd stopped checking my phone altogether. I figured they were just pretending it didn't happen, hoping I'd feel guilty enough to restart the payments myself. Typical. But that week, something started shifting, subtle at first. Rachel's Instagram went quiet. No curated posts, no matching family outfits, just radio silence. Then Brent's Facebook disappeared completely. And when something goes that's still in their world, it's never peace, it's fallout. 3 days later, one of my old friends from college, Maya, texted me out of the blue. Hey, didn't your niece and nephew go to Arbor Heights? I heard 2 students just got pulled out suddenly. Weird. I stared at the message for a long time, then I typed back, no idea. Lie, but I needed her to stop asking before she connected the dots. 2 days after that, Rachel showed up at my apartment. No call, no warning. Just banged on my door at 9:15 p.m. She looked different. Still well-dressed, but tired around the eyes. Like the perfect mask she'd worn for years was starting to crack. You really had to humiliate me like that, she said, stepping inside without waiting for permission. I kept my voice calm. You humiliated yourself when you let everyone think you were the one helping, she glared. I didn't tell Dad to say that. No, I said, but you didn't stop him either. Her silence said everything. Then she hit me with the classic Rachel move, flipping the script. You've always been jealous of me, Aaron, admit it. That word, jealous, set something off in me, not because it was true, but because she'd used it before. She used it to dismiss me, to make me look bitter whenever I pointed out her lies. I didn't plan it. My hand just moved. The sound of the slap echoed through the room. She froze, eyes wide, mouth trembling, but she didn't cry. She just turned, walked to the door, and left without another word. I stood there shaking, not from guilt, from release. It was like years of tension had finally snapped. The next morning, I logged into my bank app. No transfers pending. No automatic deductions for someone else's life. Just my money, sitting quietly where it belonged. But the silence didn't last. A week later, I came home to a box sitting at my door. No postage, no note. Just a plain white box with my name on it. Inside were a pair of diamond earrings I'd forgotten I even owned. I hadn't seen them in almost a year. There was a note written on a torn piece of paper, ripped straight from one of my private journals. You left these at the lake house last summer, thought you'd want them back. But it wasn't Rachel's handwriting. It was shaky, uneven, too neat, too uncertain. One of her kids wrote it. She had made her child write a note for something she stole from me. That was the moment I realized this wasn't just about money anymore. Rachel wasn't desperate. She was unraveling. And when people like her start falling apart, they don't go quietly. They drag everyone down with them. I thought the box with my earrings was the last of her desperation. A pathetic, twisted olive branch. But I was wrong. That was just the warm-up. 4 days later, I got an email from Arbor Heights Academy, subject line, confirmation of tuition sponsorship, fall semester. I remember staring at the subject line, my stomach tightening. I hadn't sponsored anyone in months. The email said, Dear Miss Moore, we're reaching out to confirm that you'll be renewing your tuition sponsorship for Olivia and Caleb Thompson this fall. We've been informed by the family that you've agreed to continue covering their tuition. Please confirm before we finalize enrollment. I read it 3 times, slowly. Rachel had told the school I was still paying. She hadn't even asked. She just used my name again, like I was a resource, not a person. And the worst part, she wasn't just lying to the school, she was lying to her kids. I didn't respond right away. I needed to think. But that night my phone rang. A number I didn't recognize. It was Brent. He'd never called me before, not once in the 8 years he'd been married to my sister. His voice was oddly polite. Aaron, listen, Rachel's under a lot of pressure. The kids are confused. She told them you were helping again, they're counting on that. My pulse stopped for a second. She told them I was paying, he hesitated. She told them you're their second mom. I swear the world tilted a little. Second mom. Not Aunt Erin, not helper, not supporter. She'd rewritten me into their story like I was some faceless benefactor who existed to make her life work. Every birthday party, every school trip, every bill I'd quietly paid, she'd turned it into her narrative. I was the background character in her perfect life. I hung up on him mid-sentence. That night, I opened my laptop and replied to the school. Hi, I will not be sponsoring Olivia and Caleb Thompson's tuition moving forward. Any statements made by the family suggesting otherwise are false. Please direct all communication to their parents. Aaron Moore. Then I blocked Rachel. And Brent. I thought that would end it. But the next day, Dad emailed me. Just 2 words in the subject line, call me. He never emailed, ever. Which meant one thing, Rachel had finally done what she always does when she's cornered. She called in backup. I waited 24 hours before replying. Not out of spite, out of strategy. Because if my family was going to stage another emotional ambush, I was going to walk in with my eyes wide open. The next evening, I pulled up in front of my parents' house. Every light was on. When I walked in, the whole crew was there. Mom, Dad, Brent, and Rachel sitting on the couch like she'd been rehearsing for this moment. No one smiled. Mom gave me that look, gentle on the surface, manipulative underneath. The one she uses before saying something cruel in the name of family. Dad started talking first. Aaron, this isn't about the past. It's about the kids. They've been struggling since the school change. We're just asking for a little help to hold them over. We'll pay you back. I looked at Rachel. She wouldn't meet my eyes. Then Dad said, just a couple thousand, enough to keep their spots until things settle down. I asked one question. Has anyone here ever thanked me for what I already did? Silence. Then Rachel said quietly, we didn't ask you to. That broke something in me I didn't even know was left. I stood up. Exactly, I said. You never ask. You just take. Dad stood then. For once, he looked guilty. He said something I'd waited my whole life to hear. I'm sorry. He apologized for believing Rachel's version, for letting her build herself up by tearing me down. Then he handed me a folded check. We're not asking you to do this alone anymore. Just help the kids. 2 months, we'll match it. I didn't take the check, but I agreed to pay the school directly, not to Rachel, 2 months. That was it. What I didn't know then was that those 2 months would uncover something far darker than I ever imagined. Something Rachel had been hiding from everyone. After that night, I drove home in silence, gripping the steering wheel so hard my fingers ached. I wasn't angry anymore. Anger was clean, it burns and fades. This was something colder. A kind of calm that only comes when you realize someone has mistaken your kindness for weakness for too long. I decided right then, Rachel wasn't just going to learn a lesson, she was going to feel it. So I sent the payment directly to the school 2 months, no more, no less. I didn't tell her. I didn't even tell my parents. I just wanted her kids safe for a little longer before her fantasy life completely collapsed. Then I started planning. I wasn't going to humiliate her in public again. That would give her sympathy. Rachel was too good at playing the victim. No, I wanted her to unravel privately, where no one could rescue her or spin it for her. First, I emailed the school's billing department from a new account, pretending to be a potential donor. I asked for details about their anonymous sponsorship program. Within a day, they replied. Turns out, Rachel had listed 2 sponsors on her kids' previous enrollment forms. One was me, the other, a name I didn't recognize, Marissa Hale. At first, I thought it was some administrative mistake until I searched the name on Facebook. She was a woman in her early 40s, lived in Columbus, single mom of one, worked part-time at a clinic. And her posts, filled with comments from Rachel. Couldn't have done it without you, so blessed to have found a sister like you. My stomach dropped. Rachel hadn't just been lying about money, she'd been borrowing from other people. She'd been collecting help from multiple friends, using each of us to keep the lie alive. That's when I knew what I had to do. If Rachel's image was her lifeline, then I was going to cut it off. Cleanly, quietly. I started gathering receipts, emails, transfers, invoices, everything that showed where the money had gone. I didn't need to expose her publicly. I just needed the truth in the right hands. The first person I sent it all to was Dad. No explanation, just a folder titled, "What Your Favorite Daughter Didn't Tell You." The second person I reached out to was Marissa. I didn't accuse her of anything, I just told her who I was and what had really been happening. She replied the next morning, "I thought she was helping you." That line hit me like a punch. Rachel had told Marissa that I was the irresponsible sister who couldn't keep up, that she was covering for me and I was too proud to admit it. I stared at that message for a long time before typing back. She wasn't helping me, she was using both of us. It was almost satisfying, watching the web start to collapse. But then something strange happened. 2 days later, Marissa called me crying. "Erin, I think you need to see this," she said. "Rachel's been reaching out again. She said she has something on you. Something she can prove." My throat went dry. "What kind of proof?" Marissa hesitated. "She said you stole from her." I laughed out loud at first. Then it hit me, Rachel wasn't just doubling down on her lies. She was building a new one, and this one wasn't about money. It was about destroying me. The next week felt like waiting for an earthquake. No one called, no one texted. But that kind of silence isn't peace. It's the kind that comes right before something breaks. It broke on a Thursday morning. I was halfway through a meeting at work when my phone buzzed nonstop. Missed calls, texts, voicemails from an unknown number. I excused myself, stepped out, and listened to the first voicemail. "Hi, this is Officer Willis with the Cincinnati Police Department. We received a report regarding a theft involving a Miss Rachel Thompson. We'd like to speak with you at your earliest convenience." My stomach dropped. She actually did it. Rachel filed a police report claiming I had stolen jewelry from her home, the same diamond earrings she had taken from me. The same ones she had mailed back through her kid. I didn't even feel panic at first, just disbelief. Like my brain couldn't process the audacity. I drove straight to the station, handed over the voicemail, the emails, screenshots, the photos of the earrings in the box with that torn note written by her child. I told them everything. Every transfer, every tuition payment, every message. The officer looked exhausted halfway through my story. "So, your sister took your jewelry, mailed it back pretending it was hers, and then filed a report saying you stole it." "Exactly." He side-nodded and said they'd handle it. I left the station shaking, not from fear, but from something darker. I knew now she'd crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. That night, I sat on my couch staring at my phone, waiting. It didn't take long. Rachel texted, "You went too far, Erin. You think you can make me look bad and get away with it. I'll make sure everyone sees who you really are." No emojis this time. No fake sweetness. Just venom. That was the moment I realized what this was about. It wasn't about the money. It wasn't even about pride anymore. Rachel was trying to erase me completely, and she almost succeeded. Because 2 days later, my parents called both of them on speaker. Mom's voice was tight. Rachel told us what happened. She said you're being investigated for theft. I laughed, actually laughed, because it sounded so insane. You believe her? Dad hesitated. That silence was all I needed to hear. He didn't want to believe her, but deep down he did. Because Rachel had been crafting this image for years, and I was the difficult one, the loner, the sister with boundaries. That's when I made my decision. If she wanted to play dirty, I'd play strategic. I went to my accountant, Greg, and asked him to prepare a financial statement, every transfer I'd ever made to Rachel's account. 2 years of payments, proof of every cent. Then I went one step further. I had Greg print a notarized letter confirming I was the source of those funds and that they were designated charitable family support. When I was done, I had a paper trail that could bury her lies 6 feet deep. But I wasn't ready to use it yet, because something in Rachel's text had stuck with me. I'll make sure everyone sees who you really are. She was planning something else, something bigger. I found out what it was the next day when my cousin Jenna sent me a screenshot from Facebook. Rachel had posted a photo of her and the kids crying on the front steps of their empty house with the caption, "When family turns on you for choosing love over money, broken heart, pray for us." The comments section was a circus. Hundreds of sympathy messages, people calling her brave, people calling me greedy, though she never mentioned my name. But she didn't have to, everyone knew. It was the perfect narrative, the saintly sister with kids wronged by her cold-hearted sibling, and it was working. Until the next morning when something she didn't expect happened. Someone commented under her post, "Rachel, this is Marissa. Maybe tell everyone who really paid for those school years you bragged about, or should I post the receipts?" That comment went viral in our small community in less than an hour. And for the first time in her life, Rachel didn't post another word. But I knew silence from her didn't mean surrender. It meant regrouping. And the next thing she did, what she'd been hiding all along, was far worse than I could have imagined. When the Facebook post exploded, I thought maybe that was it. Maybe Rachel would finally crawl back into whatever hole she'd dug for herself. But I should have known better. Rachel doesn't give up. She rebuilds the lie until it feels like the truth again. The next sign came 3 days later. I got an email from my dad, just a single line, "You should hear her side before judging." That was all it said. No greeting. No context, just that. I almost deleted it. But something in my gut told me not to, so I called him. He answered right away like he'd been waiting. "Aaron," he said softly, "she didn't do it to hurt you. She panicked." "Panicked," I repeated. "She filed a police report. She told her kids I abandoned them. She forged my sponsorship." "What part of that is panic?" He didn't answer. Finally, he said, "She was scared. She said you were going to expose something that could ruin everything, something about the money." And that's when I realized this wasn't about the money at all. The money was the cover. Rachel had been hiding something bigger, something that would explain why she'd gotten so desperate, so reckless. So I called Marissa again. She hesitated at first, but then her voice dropped to a whisper. "Aaron, I didn't tell you everything." She told me that Rachel had borrowed money from her too, not for tuition, not for bills, for something called an investment opportunity. She said Rachel promised to pay her back double within 6 months. Except there was no investment. Rachel had used Marissa's money, thousands of dollars, to quietly pay off her husband's gambling debt. Brent had been in deep. Casino loans, online bets, cash advances. The school tuition, the perfect family posts. All of it had been smoke and mirrors hiding the fact that their entire lifestyle was a house of cards. When the debt started closing in, Rachel did what she always did. She found someone else to foot the bill. Me. Every emergency she'd ever cried about was just a cover for the money she was using to buy time for Brent's losses. The school fees, the robotics camp, the tutoring, it was all funded with money meant to keep loan sharks off their backs. I felt sick, but Marissa wasn't finished. She said there was one more thing, something worse. A few months before I stopped the payments, Rachel had taken out a personal loan in my name. She'd used the same email I'd once used to pay the school, forged my digital signature, and listed me as the guarantor. She'd bet that I'd never notice, because she thought I'd keep paying forever. When the payments stopped, the loan went delinquent. And that's when the police report came in handy. Rachel had filed that theft report to discredit me before the truth came out, to make me look unstable, vindictive, unreliable, so that if I ever discovered the forged loan, no one would believe me. It wasn't panic. It was premeditated. Every step she took, the dinner, the school, the social media sob story, it was all part of a plan to rewrite the narrative before it collapsed. She hadn't been desperate, she'd been strategic, and she almost got away with it. I sat in my apartment, the weight of it settling in. My sister, my own blood, had used my name, my credit, my generosity, to finance her husband's addiction and save her image, all while making me look like the villain. That was the night something inside me went cold. I wasn't going to scream or plead or defend myself anymore. I was going to destroy her reputation with the same precision she'd used to dismantle mine. But I wouldn't do it with noise. I'd do it with paper. When I finally moved, it wasn't with fireworks or a viral post. It was with 2 thick manila folders, a notarized affidavit, and a calmness that felt almost rude given the chaos Rachel had tried to manufacture. Step 1. Paper. I handed my accountant, Greg, every bank statement showing my transfers for the past 2 years, wire confirmations, invoices addressed to Arbor Heights, and emails from the school acknowledging my payments. I had Greg notarize a statement confirming those payments were from my account and intended for tuition support. I had copies of every Venmo, every screenshot where Rachel messaged me about emergencies. I printed the screenshots of the torn journal page and the photo of the earrings inside the white box, the evidence that tied the theft claim back to the item she'd stolen from me and then staged. Step 2, Law. I walked into the police station with those folders and handed them to Officer Willis, the same officer who had called me. I told them calmly how Rachel had forged a loan application in my name, how she'd used my email as a front, how she'd told the school I'd renewed sponsorship when I hadn't, and most of all, how she'd filed a false theft report to discredit me. The officer flipped through the packets, and for the first time in this mess, I watched the expression on someone's face change from routine to something like alarm. They opened an identity theft investigation. They contacted the loan company, and the lender put the alleged guarantor claim on hold pending verification. The school audited their enrollment forms and confirmed they had records showing Rachel had listed multiple sponsors. When confronted, the administrator admitted the bills had been paid via several people's accounts, one of which was mine. Marissa, who I had already told the truth to, provided receipts and screenshots she'd been saving. She told the school everything she knew, and then she posted a clear, calm timeline with attached receipts in a private group Rachel had used to crow about how she did it all. That group melted down. The family meeting my parents tried to stage? It collapsed. Dad read the notarized ledger I'd left with him and didn't have an excuse that stuck. Mom went quiet in a way I hadn't heard since I'd been a kid waiting for bedtime stories. Brent disappeared from social media. The bank called Rachel about outstanding gambling debts, and this is how small-town gossip becomes evidence. Someone who used to do spreadsheets for Brent's small contractor company turned over bank transfers showing casino withdrawals. Marissa's receipts showed she'd been scammed into lending money for a business opportunity that was, in fact, loan shuffling for gambling losses. Rachel tried to spin. She called, texted, begged. She tried to show receipts that were later proven to be fabrications. She accused me of trying to ruin her family. It didn't matter. The combination of notarized proof, the loan company freeze, the school's confirmation, Marissa's receipts, and Officer Willis's report turned the narrative. The prosecutor opened a preliminary file. I won't pretend that meant an immediate headline trial or that everything snapped back cleanly. The legal system moves like cold syrup. But for the first time, the burden of proof was on her. The aftermath was quieter than I expected. Rachel's house went up for sale. Brent's 5-year plan evaporated with it. My parents stopped wearing blinders. They didn't apologize with fireworks or a dramatic speech. Dad handed me a short, private note that said, simply, "I was wrong." That was enough. I didn't want their absolution in public. I wanted my life back. What did I get? 2 months of tuition I'd paid directly to the school and CC'd to the billing office so there could be no confusion. A cleared name when the loan company removed the fraudulent guarantor entry. A police file that would sit there if anyone tried to weaponize lies against me again. distance from people who treated my generosity like an entitlement. And most importantly, the feeling that I could breathe without budgeting for another adult's emergencies. Was it revenge? Maybe. But it wasn't spectacle. It was methodical, calm, and boring, exactly what a grown-up version of me needed. I didn't humiliate her at a party or smear her online. I let receipts and sworn statements do the humiliating. We don't speak anymore. Holidays are neutral. We nod. We exchange the sort of curated civility you give to coworkers you dislike. I still see her kids at school sometimes. I smile for them and keep my distance from the drama that created them. They'll grow up with a cleaner record than their parents earned, and that's enough for me. People ask why I didn't just forgive and move on. Because forgiveness without justice would have been another unpaid bill, one I didn't owe. So I closed the account I'd been keeping for their emergencies and reopened one with a new purpose. A calendar reminder to book myself trips, take myself to doctors, fix my car when it needed fixing. Money for me, plans for me. Turns out receipts don't care about family myths. They just sit there, patient and true. And after all that noise, after all that theater, the receipts told the only story that mattered. Last line, fine, don't mistake kindness for a credit line. I stopped being one.